Good evening. Tonight we begin with a very specific announcement delivered in very careful language from Beijing. On January 24th, officials from China's Ministry of National Defense said they are investigating two of the country's most senior military officials for what they called serious disciplinary and legal violations. That phrasing matters. Those words were used to describe Zhang Youxia and Liu Zhenli, two men who sit near the very top of China's military command structure. Zhang Youxia is a vice chairman of the Central Military Commission. He is also a member of the Communist Party's Politburo. Liu Zhenli is the chief of staff of the Central Military Commission's Joint Staff Department. These are not peripheral figures. These are officials whose names are normally spoken with deference, whose positions suggest stability, continuity, and control within the People's Liberation Army. And yet, on January 24th in Beijing, the Ministry of National Defense confirmed that both men are now the subjects of an investigation. No dramatic press conference, no sweeping explanation, just a formal announcement delivered in the precise language of the Chinese state. Serious disciplinary and legal violations. It is a phrase that carries weight without offering detail. And it is a phrase that signals, unmistakably, that something significant is underway. You know, sometimes the most consequential moments arrive quietly. This announcement did not emerge in isolation. It followed the absence of Zhang Youxia and Liu Zhenli from recent official events. That absence had already been noted. In a system where appearances are closely managed, where presence often signals standing, and where absence can speak volumes, those missing appearances mattered. Then came the confirmation. The Ministry of National Defense said the two officials are under investigation. Nothing more. No elaboration on the nature of the alleged violations, no timeline, no explanation of process. Just the acknowledgement that the investigation exists. And that acknowledgement alone reshapes the landscape, because Zhang Youxia's role as a vice chairman of the Central Military Commission places him at the heart of China's military leadership. The Central Military Commission oversees the People's Liberation Army. Its vice chairmen are among the most powerful figures in the country's defense establishment. Zhang's membership in the Communist Party's Politburo further elevates his standing. The Politburo is the core decision-making body of the party. It is not a place where investigations are announced lightly. Liu Zhenli's position, meanwhile, places him at the operational center of military planning. As Chief of Staff of the Joint Staff Department, his role connects command decisions to execution. These are positions built on trust, and investigations by their nature call that trust into question. The ministry's announcement comes amid a broader anti-corruption campaign targeting top leadership within the People's Liberation Army. That campaign has already touched multiple levels of the military. And now, with these investigations, it has reached into the highest ranks. What we know and what we do not know must be kept carefully distinct. We know the announcement was made on January 24th. We know it came from China's Ministry of National Defense. We know the language used. We know the positions held by Zhang Youxia and Liu Zhenli. We know their recent absence from official events preceded the announcement. And we know this action is part of a wider anti-corruption effort aimed at top PLA leadership. That is the full extent of the confirmed information. Everything else is deliberately left unsaid, and that silence is not accidental. In the Chinese political system, official statements are calibrated. They reveal what the leadership intends to reveal. They withhold what it chooses not to share, and in this case, the message is narrow, controlled, and precise. An investigation is underway. The subjects are named. The reason is framed in standardized language. The rest remains closed. There is a quote that comes to mind here, something that captures the gravity without stretching beyond the facts. This is a moment where the quiet tells you how loud it really is. That's all. Not an accusation, not a conclusion. Just an acknowledgement of the weight carried by what has been said and by what has not. For observers inside and outside China, The announcement lands with significance precisely because of who is involved. These are not junior officials. They are not anonymous bureaucrats. They are senior military leaders whose careers unfolded at the highest levels of command. And now, their names are formally linked to an investigation for serious disciplinary and legal violations. The Ministry of National Defense did not describe the process. It did not specify the agencies involved beyond the announcement itself. It did not outline what steps come next. It simply confirmed the investigation, and in doing so, it marked a clear moment in the ongoing campaign targeting corruption within the PLA, a campaign that has already reshaped parts of the military leadership. And now, on January 24th, it moved closer to the center. Sometimes understanding begins not with answers, but with the recognition that a threshold has been crossed. Tonight, that threshold is this announcement. The rest of the narrative unfolds from here. Let's stay with what we actually know, because in moments like this, the discipline is not to rush ahead of the facts. The Ministry of National Defense spoke on January 24th. It said there is an investigation. It named two men, Zhang Youxia, Liu Zhenli, and it used a very specific phrase to describe the reason. Serious disciplinary and legal violations. That phrase appears again and again in official Chinese announcements. It is standardized, it is formal, and it is deliberately broad. It does not describe conduct. It does not assign blame. It does not declare an outcome. It establishes a process. That matters because in the Chinese system, language is policy. Words are chosen not for color, but for control. Zhang Youxia's titles alone tell you why this announcement landed with such force. Vice Chairman of the Central Military Commission, member of the Communist Party's Politburo. Those roles place him at the intersection of military command and political authority. The Central Military Commission oversees the People's Liberation Army. Its vice chairmen are responsible for directing the military under the leadership of the Communist Party. And the Politburo is not just another committee. It is among the highest bodies of power in the country. Liu Zhenli's role is different, but no less central. As Chief of Staff of the Central Military Commission's Joint Staff Department, he sits at the operational core. This is where planning, coordination, and execution converge. This is where command becomes action. And now both men are under investigation. That fact alone is the development. There is no official description of what the alleged violations involve. There is no public evidence presented. There is no timeline given. The announcement does not say when the investigation began. It does not say how long it will last. It does not say what consequences may follow. All of that remains unspoken. What is spoken very clearly is that the investigation exists and that it is serious. The announcement also did not come out of nowhere. It followed their absence from recent official events. That detail matters, because appearances are part of the language of power. In official Chinese political life, attendance is not casual. It is observed, it is recorded, it signals standing, so when senior figures are absent, that absence becomes noticeable. And when an announcement follows, the sequence becomes clear. Absence first, confirmation second. The Ministry of National Defense did not explain the absences. It did not link them explicitly to the investigation. But by acknowledging the investigation after those absences, the message was delivered. Again, carefully, again, without elaboration. This investigation is also described as taking place amid a wider anti-corruption campaign. That campaign has been targeting top leadership within the People's Liberation Army. This is not new. What is new is how high this announcement reaches. Zhang Youxia is not a peripheral figure within that structure. Neither is Liu Zhenli. Their inclusion signals the scope of the campaign. But it does not redefine it. The ministry did not claim a shift. It did not announce a new phase. It did not frame this as an escalation. It simply placed these investigations within an existing effort. And that distinction is important, because the announcement is not trying to persuade, it is trying to state. In systems like this, persuasion is rarely the goal. Clarity, as defined by the state, is. Now, one of the most striking aspects of this announcement is how little it asks of the audience. It does not demand attention. It does not ask for reaction. It does not include commentary. It is a statement of record. And yet, because of who is named, it reverberates. There is a quote that captures that restraint. Sometimes the most serious messages arrive without raising their voice. That is exactly what this is, a quiet message, delivered plainly, containing just enough information to establish authority and no more. From a factual standpoint, we must be precise. The investigation was announced on January 24th. It was announced by China's Ministry of National Defense. It concerns alleged serious disciplinary and legal violations. It involves Zhang Youxia and Liu Zhenli. It follows their absence from recent official events, and it is part of a broader anti-corruption campaign targeting top PLA leadership. Those are the facts. Nothing in the announcement suggests a conclusion. Nothing in the announcement assigns guilt. Nothing in the announcement explains cause. It simply acknowledges action. And that acknowledgement itself is the event. In environments where information is tightly managed, what is released is intentional. What is withheld is also intentional. The absence of detail is not a gap. It is a feature. The ministry could have said less. It could have said nothing. Instead, it confirmed the investigation and named the individuals. That choice draws a clear boundary. Inside that boundary is certainty. Outside, it is silence. And that silence is where speculation lives. But speculation is not our task. Our task is to understand what has been formally said, and to understand why it matters that it was said at all. The announcement places Zhang Youxia and Liu Zhenli into a defined category. They are now subjects of an investigation. That status alters their standing regardless of outcome. In systems structured around hierarchy and discipline, that change is profound. But again, the ministry does not editorialize that impact. It leaves the statement to stand on its own. There is no emotional language, no condemnation, no reassurance, just the facts as presented. And when you hear something this spare, this controlled, it invites careful listening, not because it explains everything, but because it tells you exactly what it intends to tell you, and no more. That is where we are at this point. A confirmation, 2 names, 1 phrase, a wider campaign, and a deliberate quiet around everything else. We are not at the end of this process. We are at a documented moment within it. And understanding that distinction is essential, because this announcement does not close anything. It opens a chapter, not with noise, but with formality. It is important to stay grounded in the record, because what we have here is not a resolution, it is a marker. On January 24th, China's Ministry of National Defense publicly confirmed that it is investigating Zhang Youxia and Liu Zhenli for alleged serious disciplinary and legal violations. That is the full and final confirmed statement. Everything that follows institutionally proceeds from that acknowledgement. The announcement places both men within a formal investigative process. It does not say how that process works. It does not say how long it will take. It does not say what the findings will be. It does not even say which body will ultimately determine the outcome. The ministry chose not to include those details, and so they are not part of the record. What is part of the record is the context in which this announcement sits. It comes amid a wider anti-corruption campaign targeting top leadership within the People's Liberation Army. That campaign has been described before. The ministry's statement does not redefine it. It situates these investigations within it. That choice matters because it frames this development not as an isolated incident, but as part of an ongoing effort. At the same time, the stature of the individuals involved gives this moment its gravity. Zhang Youxia's role as vice chairman of the Central Military Commission and member of the Communist Party's Politburo places him at the highest levels of authority. Liu Zhenli's position as Chief of Staff of the Joint Staff Department places him at the operational center of military command. These are not ceremonial roles. They are functional, They carry responsibility. And now they are associated with an investigation announced by the state itself. The ministry did not use language of shock. It did not use language of crisis. It used institutional language. That is how such moments are marked in this system, formally, deliberately, without commentary. The prior absence of both men from recent official events is noted as part of the sequence. The ministry did not explain those absences. It did not link them explicitly to the investigation. But by acknowledging the investigation after those absences, the timeline becomes visible, not explained, but visible. This is how official narratives are often constructed, not through exposition, but through placement. The announcement was made in Beijing. It was made on January 24th. It was made by the Ministry of National Defense. Those facts anchor it. They define its authority. They also define its limits. Nothing in the announcement extends beyond confirmation. There is no indication of guilt. There is no indication of innocence. There is no indication of next steps. That restraint is not accidental. It reflects the way such matters are handled publicly, especially when they involve senior leadership. And that brings us to the significance of this moment as it stands now, not as an endpoint, but as a documented development. The campaign targeting corruption within the PLA is described as ongoing. This announcement demonstrates that it continues and that it reaches into senior ranks. But it does not tell us how it will unfold in this case. The record stops at the announcement. From a journalistic standpoint, that boundary matters, because our responsibility is not to fill the silence. It is to respect it, to name what has been said, to repeat it accurately, and to stop where the facts stop. There is a line that captures that discipline. This is where the facts pause and the process takes over. That is where we are. The ministry has spoken. The investigation has been confirmed. The individuals have been named. The rest belongs to the mechanisms that are now in motion. Whatever conclusions are eventually reached, they are not part of this moment. What is part of this moment is the acknowledgment itself, the decision to make it public, the decision to name names, and the decision to do so in the language of discipline and legality. For viewers trying to understand what this means, the answer is necessarily narrow. It means that 2 senior military officials are under investigation. It means that the investigation was announced by the Ministry of National Defense. It means that the reason given is serious disciplinary and legal violations. It means that this comes amid a broader anti-corruption campaign within the PLA, and it means that, as of now, no further details have been provided. That is not a gap in reporting, it is the state of the public record. In systems where information is released selectively, the act of release itself is meaningful. This announcement did not expand the narrative. It defined it. It drew a clear line around what is known. Inside that line is certainty. Outside it is unknown, and respecting that distinction is essential. So tonight, as we close, we do not draw conclusions. We do not anticipate outcomes. We do not add context that has not been given. We simply mark the moment, January 24th, Beijing. An announcement, 2 names, 1 investigation, and a broader campaign that continues. That is the entirety of what can be said responsibly at this time. And sometimes that is enough.